Thanks, Joshua. I'm Cynthia Biddlecomb. I'm a retired deacon in the Lutheran Church. Came to town here about 21 years ago. And when this was the real deal, I started writing movie reviews. Not because I was bored working at Kathy's church, but I thought we needed to promote the theater a little bit more in town. So then when Real Deal closed, I stopped writing. And then Alan, thank you, and his friends got this place going. And I think first run movies in town, yes, right? So I'm going to try and come to the first night of every new film and write a review and try to get out there. So I'm a retiree. I'm too young for that, right? People older than me may not have caught on to how SALA works, so that my first review was a lot of how to get tickets and what you were trying to do here. And I'm slipping that in a little bit in each review. So trying to help folks feel a little more like they've got the tools to come and enjoy a film. Alan, I did go online to see if my husband could get in to see Oppenheimer, and it is sold out except for 2 11 a.m. showings, at least that was this morning. So it's doing really well. I don't know what you're going to do in August.
So in August, we're going to go back to the normal schedule of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
So we can all have a break. And so just 2 showings, 2:30 and 6:30.
Excellent. Okay.
And then we will have Sound of Freedom.
Oh, ooh, okay. I've heard some things about that one. All right, so we're here tonight to talk about Oppenheimer. I got to see the film on Friday evening, and a lot of us were really anticipating this film. The director is Christopher Nolan. We know him from many really excellent films. Interstellar, my husband's favorite, because he's a physicist, astrophysicist. And what are some other ones I'm not thinking? Dunkirk, what a powerful film that was, yeah. So Christopher Nolan came to town, and everyone was falling at his feet, from what I've heard. But I guess I had some friends who took their lawn chairs out there and watched all the activity that was going on with the filming when they were here in town. Was it Thursday or Friday? We had a panel up here of people who had been extras in the film, about 5 people from town, and there were a whole lot of folks and scientists playing scientists. Imagine that. And there was a comment early on before the film came out. Christopher Nolan and Cillian Murphy were talking to each other, and they recorded it for this article, that usually when you see a group of extras on a film site, they're chatting about lunch. And here, they were talking about science, how important what happened here was. So I actually have a background a long time ago, back in the 80s, having worked in the South Pacific, of being involved in the anti-nuclear, nuclear-free Pacific movement, okay? So when God sent me to Los Alamos, I had a good laugh. I think God was laughing at me. I came to town, the children don't glow. People are very smart, they're very aware of the world, and there was a great sense of balance about this. We are not all people who want to go bomb the world, right? And the people who work at the lab here, to my mind, having worked with them for 20 years, really are the people I want to have be in charge of these things. They're excellent folks. I think the film goes into that a little bit, of the scientists themselves realizing what they had released and being concerned about it actually being used to kill people. And I think Oppenheimer's response might be, what did you think we were working on? But I'm looking forward to having some discussion with you about what you thought about the film too. There were several things I put in my review. Usually I write positive stuff, and I really like this movie. It works, even though it jumps around a lot. It's not linear chronologically, but there is an underlying chronology that's going on. And the story is not exactly what you think it's going to be. It's not about the bomb. it happens when the bomb is being created, but it's about Oppenheimer himself. It's about the issues that came up between him and Louis Strauss. Strauss was the head of the AEC, head of an institute, and he was disappointed in some things that Oppenheimer had said. And it becomes this big issue between them. It's not obvious when the movie starts. At the end of it, that's what it's about. It doesn't end with the bomb. It ends with that. So you'll see that if you haven't gone yet. That's a piece of the history we may not be familiar with. Let me ask first how many have read the book American Prometheus? The Triumphs and Tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. So I've got a third of it. It's a long book, yeah. I'm thinking after the film I would like to read it now. But that's what the film is based on, is that book. It's a very long book. And that is about the man himself and what he went through. One critique I had, and I'd like to tell Christopher Nolan this, because my husband said, we noticed this in Interstellar too. There are times when the score overwhelms the dialogue. You can't quite hear what they're saying. And it's not the theater, it's not your sound system, it's their sound editor, I think. When we bought the DVD for Interstellar, my husband said they fixed it. But he has a hearing issue, and I'm concerned when he does see this film, if he'll be able to catch all the words. Like, it'd be nice to have a closed caption version. Violet Crown does that sometimes. They'll have special showings with closed caption. Not for Oppenheimer yet, but someday, maybe on that one. Okay, those of you that have seen the film, let's start with the locations. What did you think about how they portrayed our town? Yes. About right. Those scenes in the town itself, they set up the town outside of Abiquiu. I don't know where it's flat enough and doesn't have enough trees, but they managed to put in, and that's where the extras said they were being filmed. For the town site itself. There were some scenes at Ghost Ranch, and that was when they were out horseback riding, and you can see El Pedernal in the distance, like Georgia O'Keeffe painted so many times. And then the bomb test itself was apparently in Berlin, outside of Berlin. I thought there were going to be scenes in Santa Fe. I'm not sure I don't know. I mean, there should have been some. The old Capitol building, okay, all right. And then, of course, in Berkeley and Princeton, they filmed there as well for the places that he worked. The details. Did anyone else hear the extras talk about the lengths that they went to make them look like 1940s people? Yeah, it was really interesting. So they shaved the men 3 or 4 times a day, right? And they said, we're getting razor burn on our faces. Because you didn't know when the next time was you were going to be on camera, you couldn't have any stubble, right? The one woman extra said that the women's undergarments had to be 1940s undergarments. So those of us who have lived a long time have seen an evolution in that part of our wardrobe. And apparently, if you turned your back and the structure of what you were wearing under your clothes was showing it was not authentic to the period, you would notice, right? Kathy. There you go, detail. Seam on the back of the stockings. Remember, if you've seen enough movies that take place in the 40s, women actually drew that line on the back of their legs if they couldn't afford to buy nylons, or what we call nylons today. I wasn't around them, what they called stockings back then. So that level of detail just to get the crowd scenes, so everyone looks like you're really in the 1940s. So I'm impressed with that and what they went through to get that. Let's see. Okay, so how many of you are physicists? Any? Okay. How about historians? People who know a lot about this period? No? Okay, well, let's talk about it anyway. I was hoping that we could get some experts in the room because I'm certainly not an expert. Yes, I think we're learning more and more, right? So those of us who've lived here a while and you have guests come in and you take them to the History Museum, you keep learning more, right? You go to the Bradbury, you keep learning more. All right, if you're going to the film, you might want to go now. Get a good seat. All right. Take care. Thank you. Come down front, please, if you've already seen the film. Kathy. You still have not seen it, Alan? Oh my goodness. Okay, fresh. Okay. Yeah, it's. I think it's powerfully constructed in terms of dramatic effect. The score, I think, is. Although someone asked the question during the historical conversation whether the music bothered anyone because it wasn't 1940s music, but it isn't. It's Göransson. I don't know what other films he's done, but it's very powerful. It really dials up the tension. What I found helpful about that was, music always lets you know what you're supposed to be feeling when you're getting to the scene. But then, of course, it was a little too loud in a few scenes, like I said, which I think if you're paying actors that much, it doesn't make sense to me, that you can't hear what you're paying them to say. So that is a concern, and I don't know how to get it back to Mr. Nolan. If he comes, you can tell him. So what did you think about the historical presentation in the film?
I'm learning, when I said that I'm learning more history, I meant just like in the last year because of the movie coming. And, I've read books, a lot of books that other people have read over and over. And I'm really glad that I did because, and I'm glad that I've read, like I said, about a third. I'm almost to page 300 in the book. And I'm really glad that I did before because the way the timing is back and forth, it helped a lot to have more knowledge about it.
Right. I think for me, too, I think living here a while, some of these scientists' names. And so they don't label them on the picture. But if you can listen, you can hear them use the name of this person in a sentence. You're like, oh, that's Robbie. Oh, that's Fermi. That I thought that was really helpful. I couldn't remember who the actor's name was. Like, here's Niels Bohr. Why is he so familiar? Oh, yeah, it's Kenneth Branagh. Okay, now I know. Lots of stars. So you just saw it. What did you think?
I'm going to say that, it's 3 hours long. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. It was really, really good. Just building stress, and I know all the history, but still, it was excellent. Yeah. Just, I would say I didn't know a lot about all of the stuff that happened to Oppenheimer after the war, but I did know his security clearance was pulled, and I didn't know all the behind-the-scenes things with that, so that was interesting to me. I mean, I read the book, but it's been a while. So, yeah, I did read the book. It was excellent. Lots of background stuff, so it was great.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, which is too bad because the Oppenheimer After Trinity documentary, which we showed here several times, does have that at the end as a, what do you call that? Where the words are on the screen anyway. It talks about how the security clearance was given back posthumously.
Yeah, I wonder why they skipped that.
Yes. His Q clearance restored. I never knew why he lost it except
No, I
for
mean,
those
why they didn't-
connections.
Why they didn't put that up there?
Right, well, because the film was probably already finished.
Can't they just add that?
You know, it is just a frame with,
Yeah.
you know, the text. It could be something, but I think it is because they follow the book. They just follow the book. and
Okay.
stay with the book, and that's how they do it.
And it wasn't at the end, right? Okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. Right, I thought it was really unfortunate. You think about the times when his brother brings him to a Communist Party function. I mean, who didn't have a few leftist friends in their life, right? And just by showing up, this then becomes a shadow for the rest of his life. The relationship with Jean Tetlock, you can see even in the sex scene, which I don't think was necessary, the conversation, there was a little bit of help in the conversation about her kind of probing him about what is it you are doing. And you can see how it might have become a problem for him. There's so much care given to the security of the folks who work here and what they have to report when they've gone overseas, who they traveled with, who they saw. You know, they want to be sure that there was no leak anywhere about any of the things that are classified. And here's Oppenheimer running the whole show, goes off to say goodbye to his girlfriend, his mistress, I should say, and she really pushes on what is it that you're doing, you know, and he did a great job of not telling her. But what did you think about including that scene? It was, yeah, Kathy's making a face.
It was a little over the top, I thought.
Over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of us thought that perhaps that scene could have been left out.
And your review pointed out that because that was in there, people would hesitate to bring their teenagers or whatever.
That's right, and that was something Nancy Bartlett said the other night in the Real Reflections, that was the historian's perspective. And she said that was really unnecessary because, and Alan has said, there are kids who have been showing up to see the film and they can't see it because it's R-rated. Yes. So I think it's really unnecessary that he could have had a conversation fully clothed with his mistress and still had that conversation. Yeah, and I'm not a prude. I think there are some R-rated movies where sex scenes are necessary for the relationship to understand what it is that's going on in the relationship because that's the story. But that is not the story in this movie. And I wonder why they felt they had to put that in. I did read once that R-rated movies sell better. They pack the houses better. People, if they see it's a PG, maybe they won't go because it doesn't seem like a grown-up movie. Maybe that's the reason. But it's really unfortunate because this is a piece of history. And people will be streaming it at home eventually someday, and their kids may not be old enough to see it then. They'll just say, okay, don't look, you know, or something. I don't know.
Two scenes that were like less than 5 minutes.
Right, right. That's the question.
Well, I want to. You did say that the movie was about Oppenheimer, and yeah, I thoroughly agree. And it showed his torments and all those scenes where he would look like he was blacking out, and that was almost too much for me too. Like the movie, the sound was so much, the music overwhelming. It happened so many times and went on for so many seconds. It seemed like that. It's like stop.
Right.
But it was good to have it in there.
At the outset of the film, when he's young, and he seems to be having mental health issues with the swirling around and all of that, maybe that's the only way, the visual way of portraying what goes on in my husband's head as an astrophysicist. I mean, maybe that's it. You get so caught up in the theory, the physics theory, what's going on in the universe or whatever, that, you know, your feet aren't really on the ground. Okay, maybe that's what they're trying to say at the beginning of the film. One reviewer kind of indicated that he was having mental health issues back then, and maybe he was. He's certainly high-strung.
That's clear from the book, I think.
Clear from the book? Okay, I haven't read it, so.
Oh.
He did, okay. And yet,
They named it a precursor of schizophrenia. It's called something like Crine's syndrome, and back then they didn't have the word schizophrenia yet, so they think he might have been
ah,
so affected spectrum.
okay. So why did Groves pick him? Is that not in his record? Yeah.
I think he still was just seeing dollar signs and winning the war. Well, no, he wasn't seeing dollar signs. They didn't know what they had. But I don't know.
He had this instinct.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many really famous people who made things happen in history were probably bipolar? Right? I mean, I'm a Lutheran. We look at Martin Luther sometimes that way. The man had his moments, but he got a lot done. And what is there? 54 volumes of Luther's writings, right? And there are a lot of really famous people throughout history for whom this is true, right? So perhaps it wasn't an issue for Groves. He sees a man who can get this done. And
The quote of madness is sure allied to genius, and thin partitions do their bound divide.
oh, good. Say that into the microphone.
Madness is so close to genius. Oh, I've lost it now. I forget it. I'm on the spot. I think I'll have to look it up, please.
I think I've heard that one before. Yeah, I think that's it.
I think I
He
did
did.
too.
And maybe the microphone picked you up. But I think it's really true. And one other thing that Groves saw was that he got along really well with the people in his class and his fellow scientists and was able to manage them. I thought it was interesting because I lived in Berkeley for a while that Lawrence was in this film. Okay, so Lawrence is in one of the other classrooms. He's got a, Lawrence Livermore Lab is named after him. The Lawrence, the accelerator up on the hill, cyclotron. So he got his Nobel Prize in '38 for creating a cyclotron. One review says that they were close friends. Didn't look that way to me in the movie, but he's not a big critic. He is concerned about some of Oppenheimer's involvements in the Bay Area, like organizing the professors and the teachers to form a union. He looks like he does not agree with that, but he's not like waving an American flag in his face. He's really just cautioning him, I think, but I don't see him as a really close friend. You found it?
I did. Great wits are sure to madness near allied, and thin partitions do their bounds divide.
Cool. Who wrote it? Dunn?
Dryden.
Dryden. Okay.
And then two,
Thank you,
if
Josh.
you're okay with it, we were getting ready to wrap up.
All right. Any final comments about the film?
Any more questions?
You going to tell your friends to come? Absolutely. It is packing houses across the country. A young woman who just left here, she grew up here. I think she just saw it in Liberal, Kansas today. Oh, wow. And I said, okay, tell me, when you come out of the film, what was your reaction? What was the reaction of the audience? And she said, I was dancing in the aisles. I thought it was really great, she says. And then she said, but all those gray hair people, you couldn't really tell what they thought. So then she says, I get out to the parking lot and there's a group of teenagers and they're asking questions. So I gave a mini lecture. I thought,
Strike while the iron's hot.
there you go. She grew up here. She knows.
I don't know where this was published, but it's a map of the U.S., and it's got each state and how much the red states are Barbie.
Oh,
And the
it's the
blue
pink and blue scale.
and the
Yes,
blue
it's
states.
Google Trends. I had to look at the source because my husband's the next level up, the manager above him, posted it. And it was like the pink states and the blue states and numbers. And we're really high, but D.C. is higher than us for Oppenheimer. Washington,
I didn't
D.C.
notice that.
And
All I
what was
saw
the,
New Mexico was clearly.
yeah, the whole state
I didn't
was
see-
a
I
plus
just looked at it
16.
real fast.
And then if you look at Mississippi, it's so pink. And it has a minus 20, which is the minus side is the Barbie movie. It was so funny. Anyway, keep your eyes open for things like that. It's really fun. Thanks for coming.